coming out of this, will there be types of spending programs, Wendy, I'll go to you first, that people will say, this kind of worked during the pandemic. The fact that we gave childcare support, the fact that we gave rental assistance when people were in dire straits, the fact that we extended health insurance for some folks. I mean, will there be types of pandemic related spending that people might say, this kind of worked, let's stick with it?
It's funny, Brian just talked about working on something that he's writing a report on. That's the issue I'm working on. What worked well and what didn't? What do we want to repeat?
Yeah,
what do we want to keep in our toolkit? I think we learned a lot about effective ways to expand the unemployment insurance system, which was woefully inadequate before the pandemic. We learned a lot of ways that we should fix it, but I think that the very significant expansions of who is eligible for UI, I think that worked remarkably well, given that we were driving the bus and fixing the bus at the same time. The other thing that I think we learned about, it should have been obvious, but we learned about, is that we can alleviate poverty through the social insurance system pretty directly. The making the child tax credit fully refundable did extraordinary good in reducing child poverty rates, even in the midst of an economic crisis. And I hope that policymakers take a lesson from that for the future.
Yeah, Brian, I'd love to hear from you on this as well. And I love that both you and Wendy are working on this exact issue. I mean, what types of pandemic spending, looking back, do we think maybe that was a good idea? Or maybe we think it was, a total waste and we shouldn't try that again? What do you think, Brian?
I think what we learned, I think moving forward, we're probably going to see bigger government responses to recessions than we have in the past. I think this response was so huge. And I think we're probably going to see that moving forward. I think the next time we have a recession, we're probably going to see Congress shoot a bazooka into it more than we have in the past. I think you might see things like the PPP program that subsidize businesses. You might see more things like that. I think you're going to see, hopefully, states do a better job of updating their unemployment insurance programs. As Wendy mentioned, state UI programs were really archaic in March 2020, and hopefully in the meantime, they'll actually improve that and make it better. One of my concerns, though, is, I think we did spend a lot of money that did a lot of good for people, but we did it while running deficits of 15% of GDP. That's not sustainable. And my concern is, while we can look at a lot of positive things that this money has done for people, we have to be cognizant moving forward that the baseline deficits are growing so big over the next 30 years that if we are going to move towards a bigger system, a social support system, we got to find the money to pay for it. And which is going to be tough because you already have big baseline deficits to pay for too. And I do worry a little bit that we've removed the sticker shock from individuals. All of a sudden, no one gets excited for anything under $1 trillion anymore. So it used to be 200 billion, 300 billion was a lot of money. Now you hear things like anything less than $1 or $2 trillion isn't worth bothering. And so I hope as we move towards possibly more government involvement in certain areas that we saw in the pandemic, that we keep an eye on what we can afford, what we can tax, and the burdens we have already in the baseline, because it's going to be a challenge.